Well, I'd usually go into my immediate welcome spiel, but Anand, thank you very much for pointing that out. I appear to have given us a typo. SmackDown preview. Yeah, massive mistake on my part. Pretty huge. Thanks very much, Anand, for pointing it out. Today is a SmackDown preview, not a Raw review. I've put that a Raw preview. I put that wrong completely. Typical me. But it is going to be a SmackDown preview because it's Friday. So thank you very much for pointing that out, Anand. I've corrected it on Twitch, but I'm unable to correct it on YouTube or anywhere like that. I'm also currently live on Periscope. Welcome, everyone. I am Tom Colohue. This is my second to last live show on YouTube. Anyone who wants to check out these shows and everything involved herewith, in the link, what you need to do is follow me over on Twitch. Tomorrow, Sunday, we will be doing our Elimination Chamber watch along. That will be the last live show on YouTube or on Periscope. Everything is going to be via Twitch here on and going forward. So please remember to follow over there. Lots of people jumping in. Great to see everyone. Ellen on the line says, "Hi, Tom. How are you?" I am good. I was a little nervous going into these streams. I always am. Turns out I should have been because I did the entire thing wrong. But I have a little bit of news to cover, a little bit of exclusive stuff, and a little bit of talk about what we are doing with the streaming schedule this week. Also, there is Brandon. Welcome, Brandon. Great to see you. And Matt is already there and already jumping straight in. All you have to do is bowl live. Did anyone else know about that? We knew about the farm. We knew about the farm. If you follow Liv Morgan keenly, as it were, if you're a fan of Liv Morgan, you'll know most of what is happening with her and Bo. But as regards Bo Dallas, let's have a quick read of what I've got here. So in about 3 minutes, a tweet is going out advertising this here show using the Twitch link, and it's saying something about Bo Dallas. Now, if you guys will remember, about a week ago now, I think it was on last week's Raw show, we had someone ask a question about Bo Dallas, and I said he's in catering, or actually no, he's not. But Dave Meltzer has confirmed today via the Wrestling Observer newsletter that Bo Dallas is very rarely backstage. It's very nice when I say something, even if it's dragged out a little bit. And it turns out it's absolutely correct, because this was absolutely correct. I'll be sharing more news of that before I get into any of the preview stuff once I've caught up. Dominic Perez says, "Hi, Tom. What's the link?" No music. The link is twitch.tv/Tom Colohue. If I click off, it is there. I did type it in the chat, but I can always type it again. Let's do that just on YouTube because I don't want to flood everything there. Twitch.tv/Tom Colohue. As regards to music, if you follow me regularly, you will know that I actually can't do the music live on YouTube because I use the StreamYard service. However, I can on Twitch when I'm doing solo Twitch streams. Anyone who's watched, for example, the watch-alongs, I'll be doing a SmackDown watch-along later tonight, will know that I use a completely different service for it. We have a border, we have a lot more going on around it, and I can have music on that. Don't at the minute, I'm working on it. Matt says, "Dan Bo Dallas is a lucky mother." Once I'm not on YouTube, I can swear and I can read the things, but at least I can put them in the comments so that people know your opinion on that. Manny says, "Hello, welcome, Manny. Glad to see you, sir." Ellen says, "How do people know Bo and Liv are dating?" They don't. There is a grand amount of assumption. They are at the moment business partners, and it has only been confirmed that they are business partners. People are assuming that they are together. It's not in any way impossible that they are together. They may well be together. But at the moment, all we know for certain is that they are business partners. They have a lot of property together, and they have a farm together, which is, of course, property in itself. Manny says, "WWE needs a women's match for the Chamber. It would be bad to not have at least one women's match." Let's get to my news about the Elimination Chamber. So this is also sort of there for WrestleMania as well. But the Elimination Chamber card was basically booked last Monday. Until then, they genuinely had nothing planned. So within the last 2 weeks, they have planned everything, and the only thing they really focused on was a couple of points. For example, the build towards Randy Orton and The Fiend, that was the focal point. Because of that, we ended up with the Elimination Chamber for Raw, and because of that, we ended up with the Elimination Chamber for SmackDown. You may or may not have noticed that the WWE are being extremely careful with Roman Reigns, in that while he wrestles quite intense matches, he doesn't wrestle a lot of them. It's interesting to see that he's not going to be featured in the Elimination Chamber. I wonder why that is. I won't go into detail there. Ed, great to see you. If you're at a doctor's appointment, you owe me nothing, sir. You owe me nothing. You don't have to worry about that. Thank you very much. So the Elimination Chamber card is not set in stone. It is nowhere near closed, and no one's entirely sure what the plan entirely is. However, we are definitely going to have the 2 chamber matches. They are trying to book a women's match onto the show. It looks like it's going to be a women's tag team title match. It may well be Nia Jackson, Shayna Baszler against Sasha Banks and Bianca Belair in the build towards Sasha Banks, and Bianca Belair. When it comes to the match for Asuka, that was last-minute booking that we would get Asuka versus Lacey Evans. And within a week of booking it, they then had to make a last-minute change because Lacey Evans is genuinely pregnant. So at the moment, there are no women's matches planned. If we're going to get one, it'll be very last minute. Very last minute. So it's something that we may hear about on Sunday on social media. There is still a sizable contingent of people backstage who are huge fans of Asuka and want to see her on every single show possible. However, that sizable contingent, unfortunately, so far, have not been particularly successful in making it happen. There we go. And says, hi, Tom. Hi, Anand. Thank you for immediately correcting that typo or giving me the opportunity to do so. I won't be able to do it on the YouTube video just yet, but I will be able to change that once I've finished. But yeah, that's false advertising on my part, so thank you for jumping in. Brandon says, I'll be there tonight. Thank you very much, Brandon. Looking forward to seeing you. For those who don't know, I stream live on twitch.tv/Tom Colohue, and I do Raw and SmackDown watch-alongs. So if you're interested, if you want some company, jump in on Twitch and you will find me there. Also want to send out a thank you to Hassan Shapti, who followed yesterday during the Bloodborne stream over on Twitch. I like to make a point of thanking everyone who follows, so thank you very much to him. Matt says, how come no news sites have picked up the Pop Goes the Weasel song in the Elimination Chamber ad? Most news sites are aware of it, however, they've decided not to report it, which is interesting. As someone who has fallen foul of some of these news sites in the past, I always find it interesting that they are more than willing to speculate wildly because they can profit from it. They can absolutely profit from it. So they will. So why haven't they done this? One thing I do find interesting is back in the days when NXT UK was actually happening, last January we had the Undisputed Era attacking Imperium at the end of an NXT UK takeover in Blackpool. Many journalists saw the Undisputed Era at the hotel on the day. Not a single one of us reported it. Not a single one. That went to a lot of these big American sites. 100% they're reporting that as soon as possible. Brandon says, I like where they're going for the Sheamus and Drew stuff and how they built it up the last couple of months. Yeah, they've been clever. I think we're going to have the Elimination Chamber, obviously, coming up this Sunday. I think Fastlane will see a clean, straight match between Sheamus and Drew McIntyre, leading into whatever the hell they have lined up for Drew McIntyre going forwards, because, another little bit of news, there is still nothing set in stone for WrestleMania for Drew McIntyre. It's not confirmed yet. And I mean, it's not confirmed publicly. It's also not confirmed privately. The WWE aren't sure. This has come from a number of sites at the minute. I know WrestleVotes has put this out quite recently. But for a while now, it's been very clear that the Mania card is all over the place, shall we say. The WWE are not sure who will challenge Drew McIntyre. They are sure who will challenge Roman Reigns. At the moment, Edge is still the favorite to do that. So I've got that. There's also a bit of news that came out recently from Fightful saying that Kairi Sane has been unable to get permission to wrestle a Stardom show. Now, for anyone who hasn't seen it, on the 30th of July on my YouTube channel, there is a video detailing everything that would happen with Kairi Sane that I released right after her last Raw appearance. So if you want to know exactly what's going on with Kairi Sane's contract, check that out. I will find that. Bear with me just one moment while I find that and get a link ready. I should already have done this. This is shameful on my part. I do apologize. I'm not immediately available to everyone. But I'm going to get that video. And while that's warming up, I'll keep taking a few more comments. Brandon says, do you reckon we'll see Seth in a match tonight, or will he save him for a match on the Chamber card? It doesn't look like Seth is going to be at the Elimination Chamber pay-per-view. If he will, it'll be to somehow screw Cesaro. So I suspect what we're going to see is no Seth Rollins this week in ring, maybe see him backstage cutting a promo, teasing that, oh, I might do something at Elimination Chamber. But right now, with only a 2-hour show, they're not keeping people on TV that don't already have plans in place. And Anand says, do you think Jey Uso will get replaced in tonight's SmackDown, as there are reports he's not medically cleared as of now? I haven't heard anything about this. There's no need to replace him tonight. I'm not entirely sure where these reports come from. It's not one I've seen myself. But as regards his medical clearance, he did take a couple of weeks away. He has returned. He did get physical last week. So I suspect we'll see him in the Elimination Chamber regardless. Let's quickly try and get this video prepared. One on Kairi Sane. I have a lot of details about what's next. There it is. Grab it. And stick it in this feed. So if you are interested in knowing what's actually going on with Kairi Sane and her future career, there's your video. That's everything you need to know going into it. That's everything I know, certainly. And that was filmed and released on July 30th. Includes a lot of detail. Welcome Noob says, seems like everyone backstage are huge fans of Asuka. Hello, Mr. Colohue. Hello, Noob. Welcome. Everyone does seem to be a huge fan of Asuka. Unfortunately, apart from the people that really matter. That is a crying shame, but it is the reality of the situation, unfortunately. That's just what's happened. And whoever doesn't have Asuka's back, they have a lot of say. They have a lot of say in the company. So it's inescapable. Matt says, as regards the Pop Goes the Weasel, that song, I'm pretty sure that song wasn't on the Elimination Chamber ad prior to Raw. That's absolutely fair enough. And Matt says, which is why your pick to win the Raw Chamber match is not Drew or Sheamus. My pick is still Drew, personally. Brandon says Drew's going to retain this Sunday. I think that's most likely. I would be surprised if someone else wasn't in some way involved. Hang on, I've got an error message. Oh, Periscope doesn't like links. Fair enough. Yeah, my suspicion is that Drew will retain, defend against Sheamus, and then will eventually have a new challenger at WrestleMania. However, because there isn't a direct challenger lined up for WrestleMania, it could be, for example, Randy Orton taking the win, defending against The Fiend. Hard to say. Manny says, Ticketmaster put up the logo of Mania up on their site, so it looks like Mania tickets will start being sold very soon. Bit of news on that as well. Let me just grab my little cheat sheet where I've got the details. So as regards the ticket sales for WrestleMania, thank you very much, Matt. The expectation is that they will be coming out soon. The ticket launch will be announced shortly after Elimination Chamber. I'm expecting a week, maybe a week and a half. Adam Kaler was able to report something on this, but a lot of news sites have pulled this information. Here is a fun fact for anyone who's not already aware. When it comes to wrestling and the general rule of that, quite often you will be messaged by someone in, for example, the WWE or Impact or Ring of Honor or New Japan, whoever it may be, and asked to retract a piece. If you are asked to retract a piece, it is a high sign that that piece is correct. While reporting for Sportskeeda received a lot of these emails where I reported something accurately, and they were asked to retract it. One of the times when I personally received an email was when I reported 6 days before the official announcement that WrestleMania would take place without any fans. I was the only person to report this, and the first, because it was 6 days beforehand, and that video is still, again, live on YouTube. I'm not going to go looking for it, but it is a video that's live on YouTube that you can find to confirm it. It has a WrestleMania 37 logo on it if you look through my videos. So that could be potentially beneficial. But I have evidence that I did that, and I received an email essentially saying, can you please withdraw this statement? And then 6 days later, they announced that WrestleMania would happen without fans. They just want the ability to announce their own stuff. When it comes to Ticketmaster and the like, they have undoubtedly been informed that tickets are coming soon. They just are not at liberty to discuss it, as in fact, very few of us actually are, including me, apparently. Matt has commented here, and he's also sent me a DM on Twitter detailing the actual report, which I very much appreciate. Someone who backs up what he's saying, that's always a good thing. So taken from the Wrestling Observer, which when it comes to things like this, it's definitely a high likelihood of accuracy. Definitely a high likelihood in that regard. So even though Jey Uso was in action last week, maybe he hasn't been cleared. Maybe he's picked up something else since. We'll have to wait and see. If he does get pulled, I think Shinsuke Nakamura is a logical addition there. Eleanor said, what do you think of Shayna and Nia's appearance on NXT? I enjoyed it. I think it added a lot of intrigue to NXT, and I think it's one of the reasons that NXT managed to get the boost in viewership that they managed. Firstly, they came off the back of a great takeover, and yeah, they had Shayna and Nia appearing. They will appear in a number of more times to essentially elevate NXT appearances, and honestly, I kind of expect we're going to see Kai and Raquel Gonzalez tonight. I think we're going to see them tonight. I think this may also be the right time to push ahead. If we've not got an Asuka match at the Elimination Chamber, let's look at getting the women's tag team title match. Let's get Sasha Banks and Bianca Belair in a tag team briefly, but not win any championships. Let's not do that again. Let's just not do that again. But let's have them competing. I think that could be fun. I think that'd be a good way to get a women's match on the card as well. Manny says StubHub and SeatGeek already have Mania tickets up. That is under the assumption that they will be given a certain amount of tickets. There is an agreement in place as to how many tickets they will be given to sell, so they have already started selling them. They can also, of course, not honor them. I'm not suggesting that they will, but they can. And that says, do you mean the WrestleMania 36 logo? What's the one where it was supposed to go Hollywood? I don't mean 20. There was one where it's supposed to go Hollywood. And I think it was supposed to be this year's. But I don't know what the years are anymore. But yeah, I reported it on last year's WrestleMania having no fans in attendance, but use the logo for this year's WrestleMania just because it looked prettier. Manny says, I don't believe Jey is hurted in the tag match tonight. He's booked for the tag match. Certainly, he could potentially not tag in, much like Roman has done previously, or he could be taken out in the build-up to it. Anand says, do you think Edge versus Drew would have been better, and also it would have allowed Reigns versus Rollins at Mania? I don't necessarily think it would be better. I would have really enjoyed if it was Drew McIntyre versus Samoa Joe. I think, to be honest, the better options for WrestleMania all don't involve Edge. I would have liked to see Daniel Bryan against Roman. I would like to see Rollins against Reigns, but I think that's going to take a bit longer to get to. Brandon says, Drew retains. Could he possibly face Sheamus at Mania? I don't think Sheamus has the pulling power that Orton or The Fiend has, though. That is very true. I don't think Sheamus does have the drawing power of those two. However, when it comes to Orton and The Fiend, they can still have their match. WrestleMania is built not around one person. Usually when WrestleMania comes, you'll see one big draw against one slightly lower down person being built up. There was a couple of years ago, this really was clear when you saw Orton versus The Fiend, when you saw Undertaker versus Roman, and so on and so forth. You saw Charlotte versus Asuka. That was a show based around that. Finn Balor was in there with The Miz and with Seth Rollins, even though Seth Rollins was a last-minute addition to that match. they try and work that so that people are paired up, one draw and one up-and-comer. Think back to Orton versus Rollins, for example. That's exactly what that was going to be. And of course, the original Reigns versus Lesnar. Matt says, do you think WWE will do the Lana Naomi and get the title match before March 3rd? I don't, but it depends whether or not they hit the panic switch. They do need matches for Elimination Chamber. I have also just realized I didn't quite answer your entire question there, Brandon. Drew could face Sheamus at WrestleMania. They could just keep this feud going. It wouldn't be too difficult. Manny says, it seems more likely Lana and Naomi will get that title match this Sunday. I think that is more likely at the moment, but they also could have announced it on Raw and they chose not to. I would like it if we had all 4 women's teams appearing tonight on SmackDown in a segment, and then maybe a big brawl, and then they announce the women's tag Fatal 4-Way. I think that's where we're headed. And I think NXT, Dakota Kai and Raquel Gonzalez could come out the winner. Brandon says he's starting roughly at the same time as normal later tonight. Tom, Ed has answered this question a little bit later on. But yes, I'm starting the same time as normal, which is usually between 10 and 15 minutes before the show starts, so I can get people in. That 10 to 15 minutes is actually my most successful streaming section. Who knew? Who knew? Ed says 37 was Hollywood, so yes, it was a logo for WrestleMania 37. And Matt says now the logo for 39. Yeah, they pushed them back. Eleanor says, what are your thoughts on the drama surrounding women like Carmella and Natalya getting annoyed at the WWE on Fox post ranking women for a game? Found out to pay wrestlers are made at $15, if you know what I'm talking about. I do know exactly what you're talking about. I've seen a lot of these games. I've seen a lot of reaction to it. When it comes to this, I am going to choose to listen to the women who are upset about it. Because I haven't seen any women come forward and say, I'm fine with it. I have only seen women coming forward and saying, I'm annoyed by it. I'm upset by it. When it comes to things like this, it's not up to me as a man to say what women should be annoyed by. If Carmella, if Natalya are upset by this, they are perfectly entitled to their feelings. I always have that opinion. Don't apologize for your feelings. Apologize for your actions. If you get what I'm saying. If you feel jealous for something and you know you shouldn't, it's okay to feel jealous. It's not okay to act on it. That's how I feel on certain things. So essentially, I will step back and take the lead from the people who are the most vocal on this, the women who were being essentially told, you are worth less than this person. I think that game has always been a situation of you are worth less than this person. Southwestern, I'm not reading your comments because you're just advertising in my YouTube feed. So either stop advertising and ask questions, or yeah, I'm not going to read them. It's that simple. That's my opinion on that. I always thought that game was a bit iffy anyway, because you are literally saying this person is worth more than that person. That's simply not the case. Ed says, any chance WWE gives up on the Universal Championship and brings back Big Gold to tempt Edge with the belt he lost? I would say absolutely not. I think Roman would look really good with that title, but this title reign for Roman is the strongest the Universal Championship has ever looked. And they finally got rid of the ugly snakeskin element. They made the title slowly and surely through many different changes look better and better and better. They've succeeded, so I wouldn't stop them now. Matt says, something tells me WWE is going to put the title on Orton and do Orton versus The Fiend for the title, do the whole coming full circle they are telling with the storyline. Perfectly possible. Absolutely perfectly possible. I still have Drew retaining, but this is a prediction, after all, not a spoiler. An answers update on Jimmy Uso, expected back last month. Still no news as regards that. So he was expected back last month. Maybe he will be the replacement for Jey Uso if Jey Uso cannot compete. Matt says, I do think Kai and Raquel will win the tag titles. I do as well. I think that'll be a great look for them and a great look for everyone involved. So I think that's a good thing. Elena says, if WWE does Shayna and Nia versus Bianca and Sasha at the Elimination Chamber, surely neither Sasha nor Bianca can afford to take a pin. So how do they get out of the match? By putting more teams in. If they have, for example, yes, if they have, for example, Naomi and Lana in, they could have Naomi take the pin, for example. That's just a way of making it so that neither of them has to take it. Or maybe they work against each other in a way. Brandon says, I feel Dominic is going to turn on Ray soon. I found it very, very interesting that Dominic was out for Seth Rollins' return speech. That was confusing to me. Same with Ray. He was there too. Southwestern says, hi, Tom. How are you today? I'm very good, Southwestern. Thank you for asking. I always like how many people just come in and they're like, how are you? That means something to me, and I appreciate that. The streams that I've been doing have been going absolutely great. And while I'm on this particular topic, let's talk a bit of personal news and things like that. So later today, in 3.5 hours on YouTube, my first gaming video will go live. This will be a video of highlights and funny moments from the Bloodborne stream that I did yesterday. Some of you may have been there for that, some of you won't, that's fine. If you're not into gaming content, you'll get the notification on YouTube, and you are, by all means, I understand completely if you choose to skip this one, but I advise you to give it a go. I think I've made it quite fun, and we were very successful with the Bloodborne stream yesterday, easily my most successful gaming stream so far. We are well on the way to pushing towards the next step on Twitch. Of course, I will be monetizing by Monday, so in about 3 days. In addition to that, my latest YouTube video has gone extremely well. Particularly, I'm talking about the last Raw review. That went extremely well, particularly, I think a lot of it's down to SEO and the fact that people have been searching Lacey Evans' name to see if she's really pregnant or not. So I think it just got a good title. But quite a high number, about 230% of my usual views, and most tellingly, lots of comments, lots of likes. Please, if you are watching my YouTube videos, remember to click like and remember to leave a comment. These things are what is giving me more viewers. These are what is giving me more subscribers. So the more interaction I get, the more YouTube advertises my videos. Please remember to click like if you are watching this video on YouTube right now. And please do remember, if you are watching my videos in future, to do that as well. That is a huge benefit to me. Where are we up to? Noob says, I get a feeling that Asuka is going to turn heel on Charlotte Flair sooner than later. I'm not sure fans would take it, particularly if you're facing off against someone like Charlotte Flair, who's just a natural heel. So I'm not sure the fans would go for it. And I think really, Asuka doesn't need a heel turn. She just needs new opponents. And Matt says, my only issue with the WWE on Fox drama is why didn't people get mad over the one they did for the male wrestlers? That, for me, doesn't play into it. It depends what you mean by people get mad. Ultimately, the people who were mad about this were the people who were either not featured in this particular one or featured too low. Ultimately, it's up to people what they get upset about. And I don't think it's a double standard. I think maybe some of the male wrestlers need to step up, because I know some of them have been annoyed by them in the past. They just haven't said anything because they're guys and, man up. I think it's a question that needs asking, and I think we can do away with those lists. They ain't what you're looking for. Matt also says the Universal title actually means something now with Roman as champ. I think the Universal title has been okay recently. Essentially, since it came off of Lesnar, I very much thought that the Universal title, they've been doing very well with it. That Wesson says, did you see Edge on NXT? I did. I don't think he added much, to be completely honest. I think when it came to the Dunn versus Balor feud, they kind of ignored him. Matt also laughs at my use of prediction, not a spoiler. That person asks, who are the SmackDown champions? At the moment, Roman Reigns is the Universal Champion, the Women's Champion is Sasha Banks, the Intercontinental Champion is Big E, and the Tag Team Champions are the Dirty Dogs, Dolph Ziggler and Robert Roode. I think we're likely to see a Tag Team title match added to Elimination Chamber. They've got the Street Profits ready and raring to go, so why not do that? Eleanor rightly pointing out Murphy was there. That's in reference to Seth Rollins' speech. I realize I'm slightly behind. I'm trying to catch up. Southwestern also points out Bad Bunny is a 24/7 champion. A bit of news on that. It won't be any surprise to you, but he was given that championship purely for an SNL appearance, and he is expected to lose the championship pretty much immediately after this weekend. Possibly at the pay-per-view. They may have already filmed it. Manny says, do you think WrestleMania will be its normal 4 to 5 hours for the 2 nights now that WWE will have fans? Yes, I do. I think we will see a 4-hour show followed by a 4-hour show. There or thereabouts. Be a lot of matches, but I don't think NXT is going to feature as much as people think. Matt says it sounds like WWE dropped the whole Murphy Mysterio storyline. He was out there for Ron's return last week, but it wasn't out there for the Mysterio's tag match. Very true, and actually a really good point, because clearly he was there, but he wasn't there supporting. We also, did we see Alia? Did he come out of Alia? Can't remember. Brandon says Ray still hasn't revealed the guy who was supposedly going to help them take out Corbin. Yeah, it's confusing, isn't it? It's almost like they've completely forgotten the storyline. Rey Mysterio's been all over the place recently. All over the place. Unknown% says, do you have any update about Kyle? Do you mean Kyle O'Reilly? Just if you can be clear on that for Kyle O'Reilly, if that is him, you may also be asking a typo, for example, on Kylie Ray. There is no update there. But if you're asking for an update on Kyle O'Reilly, there's no update to give. He's fine. He was always fine. There was no seizure of any sort. He's absolutely fine. Eleanor says, do you think women's division needs Ronda Rousey? I think the Raw women's division needs new blood. I don't think they necessarily need Ronda Rousey. I would give them another double R, personally, and I think that's what they need to elevate it a little more. And I think once the tag team championships are held by a NXT or a SmackDown team, we can then have Shayna Baszler and Nia Jax split up, as it were, and go back to singles competition. At that point, the top of your division is Shayna Baszler, Nia Jax, Charlotte Flair, Asuka, Rhea Ripley. I think the women's divisions are fine. And as says, do you think whatever Ali is tweeting against WWE is a part of a storyline? Ali is doing what he wants to do in order to bolster his career, get over as much as possible. The WWE are supportive of it. There's some breaking news for you. The WWE are supportive of the promos that Mustafa Ali is cutting. They are supportive of the work that he is doing on social media. The WWE are supportive of Ali. Just unfortunately not in a booking sense, but they like what he's doing with social media. Matt confirms that Ali was not at ringside, so maybe they've abandoned that. Southwestern says Finn needs to come to SmackDown. Personally, completely disagree. I think Finn Balor is doing great work where he is right now, and I'm really excited to see him lead NXT for a while going forwards. I think that's a really exciting prospect for me. Quickly, if you are watching on YouTube at the moment and you are not someone who has already clicked the button, please do remember to click subscribe. Please do remember to click like. That helps me grow, and that means you'll be getting a whole load of great content regularly. I'm very consistent with my videos. I will be doing gaming content taken from my live streams on Twitch, which is twitch.tv/Tom Colohue. If you haven't already popped over there, please do so. I'm just going to put the link back in as well. That is where my focus is, and that is where my live content is going to be going forward. So please, if you can focus there, remember to click follow as well. That'll be a big help for me personally. What am I up to? Matt suggests Reform Blake and Murphy could use a fresh tag team on SmackDown. I agree. I think that's the logical next step there. And also says Kyle O'Reilly is really, really good at wrestling. He's really, really good at everything. Everything. Brandon also says Raw getting Becky Lynch back would be a big boost. I suspect Becky Lynch won't be back until after we've had some sort of shake-up, because either we'll see maybe Sasha Banks go to Raw, or potentially I think Bayley could add up there. But I think if Becky Lynch is staying with Seth Rollins on the brand that he represents, I think she will be on SmackDown. It's also it's her brand, you know. Unknown% says Kyle O'Reilly needs a title for his selling. Yeah, he really does. No seizure whatsoever. No problems. Absolutely fine. There was never any problem. Austin Parmenter says, could we see Cross versus Finn at Mania or TakeOver? It's looking like Karrion Kross isn't actually going to be connecting with Finn anytime soon. That may be an after WrestleMania /TakeOver thing. I think really at the moment, it's looking like we're going to see Finn Balor versus Adam Cole versus Kyle O'Reilly. I mean, that sounds amazing. I'm never going to complain about that. Never. Weston says, I'm a big New Day fan and I was sad to see them split up. Me too. I know they've not really split up. The New Day is still the New Day. There wasn't any sort of actual breakup. Nobody's turned on anyone. So they could come back together at any point. But I do miss the New Day being the New Day. It doesn't feel the same with only one of them or only two of them. Mal says Adam Cole should be Finn Balor so O'Reilly can win the title from Cole. I know that's different than Balor versus Cross, but O'Reilly winning the title from Adam Cole just makes sense. We still could have Adam Cole versus Kyle O'Reilly quite a long time ago now. I reported that there were issues with a potential Undisputed Era call-up. Not all of them wanted to go. So it would necessitate a breakup if there was a plan to call anyone up. Here we are. Matt also says, I personally think O'Reilly is a better seller than Dolph Ziggler. That's high praise. I could flick O'Reilly's nose and Cal would make it look like I broke his nose. That's how good he is at selling. He is. And I'm a big fan of his whole, when he does a thing like, I'm ready to fight. And then he falls out the ring. Oh, good stuff. Such good stuff. We are 36 minutes in. I haven't done anything about my preview. Let's see what's left on my news page. What have I mentioned already? So I've mentioned Elimination Chamber and WrestleMania. The cards are unfinished. I've mentioned about Bo Dallas, which if you've been watching these shows a week ago, I did say that Bo Dallas is very rarely backstage. I've clarified and shown you guys a video about Kairi Sane's contract. I've mentioned that there is no current replacement match for Asuka. If there is going to be one, it'll be very late in the day, probably announced on the day of Elimination Chamber. The only other thing I've got is that Lars Sullivan has been reported to be moving into the boxing world. So he doesn't look like he'll be staying with pro wrestling. He will be going into boxing, which gives him some options. I mean, he's a big guy, but he's maybe too big for boxing. Before I get into the preview, let's have a quick talk about what I'm creating later on tonight. About 15 minutes before SmackDown starts, 10-15 minutes, I will start on twitch.tv/Tom Colohue, a SmackDown watch-along. I hope to see you all there. We've had some great fun in the watch-alongs previously. Also, in just under 3.5 hours, my Bloodborne highlight video will be going live on YouTube. This is brand new for me. This is not something I've done on YouTube before, but I'm really happy with it. I think the video came out great, and I edited a 2 hour and 25 minute video down into about 43 minutes. Really proud of that. And yeah, I've mentioned the really good performance of the Evans Flair video. Please do remember, if you're watching videos on YouTube, click like and remember to comment. That really does help me and my personal growth. So what comments have we got now? Fair one. That's not it. Southwestern says, Tom, what would your wrestling name be? I think Tom Colohue is a pretty obvious one. I mean, I already have a following on Twitter of like 10,000 people. So that's usually a good sign that it's a brand name, as it were. And I think that'd be great to have. But growing up, I played a lot of No Mercy, a lot of WrestleMania 2000. My wrestling name was Cerberus. And my finisher is an inverted jackhammer called Rapture. There you go. At some point, I'll have to find someone who likes to draw and get them to draw Cerberus, as it were. But yeah, I was Cerberus. My finisher is called the Rapture. It is an inverted jackhammer with a certain amount of theatrics. Essentially, you start like a brainbuster, and then you do a jackhammer, but where they fall face first. You have to hook their right arm behind. Bear with me. Behind like that. And that essentially prevents them from protecting themselves. Then when they lift up, they engage core, they come down flat, you land on top of them, inverted jackhammer, the arm hook, then makes it easy to flip them over. I literally have done this to people. I've never seen it done by anyone else. If you see someone do it now, you'll know what's happened. Austin Palmeter says, I have a feeling Cross will be out for like 2 weeks or 3 to sell the injury, then Cole versus Finn for the title, O'Reilly then costs Cole the title, sets up a big match with Cole versus O'Reilly. Cole versus O'Reilly is definitely where we're going, but it doesn't necessarily need to be for the championship. We could have a takeover which features Adam Cole versus Kyle O'Reilly and Finn Balor versus Karrion Kross. There's no reason not to do that. Ed says, do you think that Walter will eclipse 1,000 days as UK champion now he is past Pete Dunne? I think so, mostly because at the minute, NXT UK is in a real holding pattern. just in a real holding pattern. The champions there have been the champions for a very long time. And anytime they bring someone new in, they get crushed by the top people. Nobody can come into the UK. No one can leave that particular company at the moment, that offshoot, as it were. So even though Triple H ultimately wants to get people swapping and changing and going to different brands, and okay, we're not going to push you here. You can go over here for a little bit if you'd like, do a name value, draw some people there. At the minute, I've got to be completely blunt, nobody's really watching it. There's a lot of recovering that needs to happen. Eleanor says, is Keith Lee definitely out of the Elimination Chamber, and if so, why? When it comes to the pay-per-view, he is currently still booked in the match between himself, Matt Riddle, and Bobby Lashley. He didn't feature last week at all, so a lot of people are a little bit concerned. However, to my knowledge, that was part of the same taping schedule as the previous week, so he was there. As regards what happens next, I don't see any reason he would be pulled. However, it's not impossible if there is an issue. I'm just not aware that there is an issue. Matt says people say WWE won't ever let their talent work with Stardom, but that is untrue, as prior to their fallout, WWE allowed Toni Storm to work Stardom shows while she was an NXT UK champion. When it comes to NXT UK, the contracts are slightly different to WWE proper. Quite a lot of people work exclusive contracts in WWE NXT UK, but a lot of people don't work exclusive contracts. Toni Storm was one of those. Keyword was. Matt says he thinks WWE is building Rampage Brown to dethrone Walter. Could be. However, a lot of people thought that about Tyler Bate. Unknown% says, did you see WWE on Fox's tweet and WWE's IG post about superstar underestimate? Do you mean underrated that Mustafa Ali commented on? Just if you can clarify on that, that'd be great. Manny says Mako will beat Kaylee Ray in 2 weeks. Not sure about that. I've met Kaylee Ray. When I interviewed her last January, I had a wonderful moment where she was like, "Oh, I recognize you." That's quite good as an interviewer because they meet hundreds of us. Right, a non-percent has clarified. WWE on Fox is struggling a little bit at the minute, isn't it? They're doing everything they can, and they're getting called out quite a bit. But really, it gave Mustafa Ali a platform to do what he does, which, as I've said, the WWE are very supportive of. Southwestern says, if you could have one match in WWE Championship, would you like? The WWE Championship, absolutely. That's the only championship that is, that is the top wrestling championship in the world, ever. So that's definitely the one I go for. Matt says, Jordan Devlin has baggage around him right now because of speaking out stuff. They will still push him. Despite reports that came out about Jordan Devlin, they will still push him, as you have seen for other people. I think it's very telling that Velveteen Dream, for example, is not on TV right now, especially after a ladder match in which he had some really cool spots and nobody in that audience did anything for them. Not a reaction. It was the strangest thing. Brandon says, do you reckon Ryback will ever return if his body eventually heals fully? I saw a video on his YouTube channel saying the door is left open with WWE if he wanted to ever return when he's all healed up. Very possible that could be the case. The WWE make a point of inviting people back. I have mentioned previously about it only needing a phone call if CM Punk ever wants to return. He just doesn't want to return. It depends. He burnt bridges with the wrestlers rather than the management. Austin says Volta will be crazy on NXT like Dunn. Possibly. Let's not forget that Volta was beaten by one Claymore back at Survivor Series. At that point, we should have known where Drew McIntyre was going. Matt says, to be fair, not everyone else looks like Rampage Brown. That's true, but looks aren't everything. And Southwestern says, goodbye, Southwestern. Glad that you dropped in. Matt says, Triple H clearly is uncomfortable when asked about Dream during media calls. He definitely doesn't want to talk about it anymore. He's made that very clear. He wants people to stop asking the question. So I suspect people are going to stop asking the question. I think that's exactly what's going to happen. As I mentioned earlier, wrestling media is fraught with complications. There are a lot of people that you will see who are constantly reporting, oh, Vince McMahon is high on, Vince McMahon really loves. This person's going to get pushed. This person's going to get pushed. Your favorite's going to get pushed. These people tend to be getting information from WWE PR, and as a result of leaking these things, they tend to get good interviews. That's just a standard PR move, as it were. Certain people get better interviews than others. That's just the way it goes. A large part of this is also down to domain authority, the strength of the relative website, to see how hard they can push a story, which is why they want Sports Illustrated more than, for example, Sportskeeda, even though Sportskeeda has been elevated significantly in my time working there. When it comes to these media calls and everything with Triple H, he is prepared for questions. He always has sheets of paper in front of him. Every now and then he gets caught out, and I think maybe he wasn't ready for this question and he wanted to shut it down. We will see more with Velveteen Dream. We will hear more. There are also questions for me about certain people who went missing from NXT UK, who just went missing and then suddenly came back without a word. I get told a lot in my line of work. I know a lot in my line of work, and there are lots of things which it is not my place to say. But I would ask questions of quite a few people in the WWE at the moment, and in fact, quite a lot of different promotions. Austin Palmeter says, is it true that Vince doesn't like Keith Lee promos? I think it's unlikely that Keith Lee would be allowed to do promos if Vince McMahon wasn't a fan of them. There are a number of people who genuinely aren't allowed to do promos, and just they are never allowed to talk. One of them, and I disagree with this one, but when's the last time you saw a Bobby Lashley promo? MVP does the talking for him. It's true that he does brief bits, but by and large, he's always had someone with him, a Leo Rush, for example, as someone who can do the talking for him. So I don't think Keith Lee would be able to do promos without the support of Vince McMahon. Elena says, why doesn't Triple H just fire Velveteen Dream then? He doesn't want to, and in the eyes of the WWE, there is no cause to fire Velveteen Dream. That's in the eyes of WWE. I make no statement either way. Matt says, did Triple H basically confirm Rhea Ripley's on the main roster? He didn't basically confirm anything. Triple H never basically confirms. He either confirms or he doesn't. So there's no specific confirmation or anything there, because it's the WWE, and people can be called up to the main roster, never wrestle there, and come back down again. We saw Santana Garrett for the first time in the Royal Rumble. They've done nothing with her since. There's a number of people on creative hiatus and the likes. There's a number of people who they're just waiting for another storyline to get out of the way. I suspect Ripley versus Asuka, if it's going to happen, will probably be kicked into gear sooner rather than later. Or once we finally get whatever's happening with Alexa Bliss and Randy Orton done with, maybe then we will see Rhea Ripley arrive. When it comes to over on Twitter, the conversations happening, and there's like, you're atting other people, so it's not meant for me, so I'm not going to read it out. But you guys, by all means, keep talking. Brandon says, any chance we'll see Cena at Mania? They've reached out to John Cena a number of times. This is one of the reasons we've seen him in promotional packages recently. I strongly suspect we will see John Cena at WrestleMania in some capacity. I'd like it if he bought a ticket again. I think that was really funny last time he did it. I'd like to see more of it. Matt says, if The Fiend is set to return on Sunday, then the WWE title should main event the Chamber pay-per-view. Yeah, I agree with that. Let's have a quick read through my preview document to see if I have missed anything. I've talked about the tag title scene. Talked a bit about the Universal title. Let's talk a bit more about it. The big headline match tonight is a 6-man tag. They will offer no advantage whatsoever for the Elimination Chamber, but it really shows that you have 3 faces and 3 heels. Kevin Owens, Cesaro, and Daniel Bryan will be on one side. On the other side will be Jey Uso. Help me out here. I forget who's in it. Jey Uso, Baron Corbin, and Sami Zayn. It will be everyone there. Now, I think at the end of this, we're going to see the heels looking strong, but it depends. If Jey Uso is going to get pulled, that'll be the time when he gets pulled. But I think they're going to essentially have a consistent match, everyone in for a brief time. Jey Uso might not even wrestle, to be completely honest. But I think Roman Reigns will definitely be getting involved in some capacity. If we do see Jey Uso pulled, Shinsuke Nakamura for me would be the obvious one. But I think it shows that maybe there's a bit less star power in this particular chamber, largely because of the lack of Roman Reigns, of course. But there is, for me, more technical wrestling ability. It's in my opinion. What else have we got? I have mentioned that I think we're going to get maybe a tag team championship match at the Elimination Chamber. Seth Rollins. Okay, the last thing worth mentioning is what's going on with Carmella. She and Reginald have been hovering around Sasha Banks again, has not been too involved with Bianca Belair. So I think they're trying to build towards Carmella versus Bianca Belair. That could be a fast lane match, depending on when or if we end up with a tag team match. But if there is more excitement for a women's tag team match and Sasha Banks and Bianca Belair as a tag team, we will see that instead of what's going on with Carmella. That said, I don't think Carmella is completely out of it at this point. I'm going to answer the last few comments and questions, and then I'm going to go down and grind up some mushrooms because I'm making mushroom soup in a slow cooker, and it is going to taste glorious. Okay, I've read that one. Austin says, it sucks that guys like Buddy, Black, Andrade, and even Shayna should have gotten a better push. I don't see why Vince doesn't like pushing them. It's not always Vince, and I think that needs pointing out. A lot of the time when it comes to creative hiatus, it's just that the creative team hasn't written anything good for them. It's not always Vince. No, I did report previously that there have been a number of tweaks to Aleister Black. I think this was like about 8 months ago, that there are a number of tweaks being made to Aleister Black. The idea is Vince is trying to refine the character into something that he can relate to. At the time, a different reporter reported that, no, he hasn't soured. I never said he soured. The other reporter basically reported the exact same thing and said that my report was wrong, while also reporting the exact same thing, that Vince is a fan of Black, but doesn't quite get the character, and so there are some changes coming. Yeah, I know, I mentioned tweaks. But anyway. So when it comes to that going forward, same is true of Andrade. They just don't seem to be able to find a place for him. And I really wish they did. I really did. Unknown% says Fiend could be returning to challenge Randy like the 2016 Elimination Chamber. That's exactly what I expect will happen, yes. Matt says, I think it's quite telling that Orton was the only one who wasn't pinned or submitted in the gauntlet. I think you might be reading too much into it, mate. I really do. Matt says, people forget that Bruce Pritchard is head of creative for Raw and SmackDown and is Vince's right-hand man. It's not just him either. There is obviously quite a large creative team whose job it is to come up with fun and exciting storylines. And with certain characters, they just haven't. They just haven't. Austin says, I heard, I don't know if it's true, that Zelina Vega is going to manage Ortiz and Santana. I've heard nothing about that. As far as I can tell, at the moment, there has been nothing signed by Zelina Vega, but she is on Twitch, and I recommend that people jump in Tia Trinidad and ask her yourself. By all means, ask her yourself. Brandon says, I reckon Drew's going to retain, but I would love a Kofi or Hardy upset, even though it's never going to happen. No, unfortunately, it's never going to happen. Jeff Hardy particularly, they've been... Since he came back, they just don't seem to have treated him as a big deal. They keep putting him into the big deal matches, but they just don't seem to be treating him like a big deal. It's a shame, but I do think Drew is going to retain. And Brandon says, I wish Ray and Dominic were in the chamber, so we got to see a teaser of them having to fight each other. I don't know if they will. I think, to be honest, they will tag team for a while, and then Ray will probably retire. I don't know. That's just my opinion. And Matt says, Zelina Vega seems perfectly happy staying on Twitch. Possibly. Twitch has been very good to me as well, to be completely honest. I have a number of people watching me there right now. Austin Palmenter says, anything about Brock? No comment. Absolutely no comment. It may be that I have heard something. It may be that I've heard something about contracts. However, the fact that I did report that Brock had been penciled in for SummerSlam, and then because they weren't able to have fans, they chose not to bring him, that's one of the things that people attack me with and saying, hey, you were wrong, you got this wrong, you're a liar, completely ignoring the several hundred correct reports that have come out of my reporting, just completely ignoring that. So, no comment. Eleanor says, do you think Dominic will get lost in the shuffle after Ray retires? I kind of do. A lot of people are really high on him. I have reported previously, like a year before he debuted, I reported he would be skipping NXT. I'm not bitter. But when he finally did, he had good moments. However, he is still quite green. One of the reasons he's working with Baron Corbin right now is because he is quite green. And Baron Corbin's considered a very safe, very consistent worker. Unknown Percent says, AEW exploding barbed wire deathmatch. Tom Colohue says, yes. Matt says Vega is making more money on Twitch than she was when she was in WWE. I believe so, based on her subscription numbers and everything like that. It is an achievement. Also, she seems to be having more fun. That's just my take on it. And Brandon says, Dominic seems like a natural heel to me, but that's just me. I do disagree with you, but I also thought that Bayley wasn't a natural heel, so egg on my face. Those are all the comments we have at the moment. However, we still have quite a few people here. So I'm going to ask the following. We are going to do a quick preview of Elimination Chamber. The reason it's going to be quick is because there's only 3 matches actually going to be on the card so far, and they haven't announced anything new. Let's go over to Twitter and let's quickly check if the WWE have announced anything new in the time that I have been in this stream. WWE, 1 tweet in the last hour. That's not promising. If it's a retweet, even worse. Retweet, retweet, retweet. Oh. Stop the wheel to find out who's going to win the Elimination Chamber. They haven't announced anything new apart from an 8-man tag team match for 205 Live. So, my question to you before I go into my predictions is, who do you have to win the following? The Raw Men's Elimination Chamber, the United States Championship match, the SmackDown Men's Elimination Chamber. Who have you got winning those? I'm going to give you guys a moment before I jump into what I have to say about this one. You guys work out what you think is going to happen. I'm going to catch up with some of my comments. Austin says, I'm still hoping for that Lashley versus Brock match. You and me both, mate. You and me both. I need that in my life. Matt says, I personally didn't think Brock was going to wrestle without fans. Sure, he did the WWE title match with Drew, but WWE couldn't pull both world title matches. Yeah, and this was the basis of it. I very specifically said Brock Lesnar has been penciled in, but wants fans to be there. And yeah, eventually that didn't happen, and here we are. And Matt also says Dominic needs work on his promo skills. Practice makes perfect. Brandon says Bayley definitely surprised me too with how good a heel she was. Okay, I was confused by that. Let's have a look at what people have got for their predictions. Matt is saying for the champ prediction for the WWE title, Randy Orton. For the SmackDown Chamber, Cesaro. And then Roman to retain over Cesaro. Eleanor is saying for the Raw Men's, Drew McIntyre. For SmackDown, Cesaro. For the United States Championship, Lashley, with Riddle taking the pin, setting up Lee versus Lashley in the future, maybe for Mania. And Matt also adds on US title, Lashley. Ed says Sheamus for the Raw Men's Elimination Chamber, Jey Uso for the SmackDown one, and then Roman to retain. My predictions simply are thus, and you'll know most of these already if you watch this regularly. For the Raw Men's Chamber match, I believe we will see the return of The Fiend, which will eliminate Randy Orton from contention. And I believe Drew McIntyre will then finish the match against Sheamus and come out the victor. This will then lead into Sheamus and Drew McIntyre one-on-one at Fastlane. And this would also lead into Randy Orton versus The Fiend at WrestleMania. For the United States Championship match, my suspicion is that it's exactly as Eleanor has said. I think Lashley will win, with Matt Riddle taking the pin or the tap, whatever it may be, setting up at Mania Bobby Lashley versus Keith Lee in something that will hopefully be a big help going forwards in reigniting Keith Lee's push. Then for the SmackDown Men's Chamber, I believe the final two will be Daniel Bryan and Cesaro, with Cesaro winning again to go up against Roman Reigns. Now, Roman Reigns, I suspect, will beat him in very short order because of either Jey Uso, Jimmy Uso, or in fact Seth Rollins. I think this is a point at which we may see Seth Rollins interfere to cost Cesaro the match. Either way, I don't think Roman is losing, and I don't think he's wrestling for longer than maybe 10 minutes. Let's see what people are saying. Matt says he feels bad for Shinsuke Nakamura. Yeah, that didn't really happen as we expected, did it? Eleanor says Roman retaining. Please, Roman will retain. That seems consistent for everyone. Unknown Percent says Drew retains. Roman retains over Jimmy. I'd imagine you mean Jay, because Jimmy Uso is not in the match. And Bobby retains. And Brandon says for the WWE title, Drew McIntyre. For the United States Championship, Lashley. Pardon me 1 second. To set up Lee versus Lashley at WrestleMania, so Riddle will get pinned. Yeah, I think we all seem to agree on that one. For SmackDown Chamber, you have Jey Uso winning, and then Roman maintaining the title. Welcome back to Southwestern. I won't be on much longer, but thanks for dropping back in. Eleanor says, if Seth interferes with Cesaro versus Roman, I'd love that, especially if they tease a Shield thing. I think long-term, Seth will be the one to take the championship from Roman. But I think at the moment, their characters are just too similar. Austin says, could we see the Fiend with a new mask like a burnt one? That'd be cool. That'd be really cool. I'd like that. Matt says, I think Nakamura needs a change of scenery. Going to Raw could do Nakamura some good. Maybe. But we'll see. People who move around a lot tend to drop down the card pretty quickly. The Miz is a good example. Kevin Owens has been yo-yoing for years, and he's moved a lot. So I think Nakamura could get the benefit there. He's certainly been on SmackDown for most of his time on the WWE main roster. Or in fact, I think actually all of his time on the WWE main roster, Nakamura has been on SmackDown. So I think maybe a change will do him some good, but we'll have to wait and see. And finally, from Eleanor, I completely agree with Seth being the one to take the title from Roman. Talked a lot about Roman on the bump, so who knows? Right, we have been going for just over an hour, and I'm going to wrap it up here. I will get to that last comment just in 1 second. Don't forget, in 3 hours, Bloodborne video will be going up on my YouTube. Please, if you are interested in the gaming side of what I do here, be sure to watch that. Click like and leave a comment, or at least click like and leave a comment. That is very beneficial to me. In addition to that, I will be live right here on twitch.tv/Tom Colohue tonight for a SmackDown watch along. I'll be live 10-15 minutes beforehand. Please join me there. If you are watching on YouTube, I will not be live on YouTube. You will not get a notification on YouTube. So please do remember to jump over to my Twitch channel and be sure to follow there. You will then get a notification anytime I go online. You can ignore the gaming ones if you're not a gaming fan, or you can jump into the gaming ones if you are a gaming fan. I hope to see you guys there. Let's read the last few comments I've got. Southwest says, can we see Roman versus Seth Rollins as a tag team? Possibly, but I don't think we will, because they're both very independent and like top-level guys. Brandon says, would Rollins have to turn face if he was to take the title from Roman in the long-term future for it to work? He wouldn't have to, but I think he should. And that is everything from everyone. So thank you, everyone who has joined me. I really do appreciate the amount of free-flowing conversation we get here and the amount of people who jump in. That has been all from me. I look forward to seeing as many of you as possible tonight live on Twitch for the watch along. Until then, thank you and goodbye.